Years ago, when I decided to get back into reading heavy, one of the first sci-fi books I picked up was Hyperion by Dan Simmons. After reading Hyperion, this quickly became one of my favorite sci-fi reads of all time. And now that I have this channel and I love doing book reviews, I had to reread one of my favorite books again so I can give a full deep dive analysis on Hyperion by Dan Simmons. All right, so the premise of Hyperion is simply a story about seven pilgrims who are on this pilgrimage journey to reach the legendary Shrike for a wish. In this story, humans have conquered space, and pretty much these planets run like countries, and all of these planets are connected in this hegemony world web. Hyperion is a planet on the outskirts of this web. Hyperion hosts the Shrike and the Time Tombs, which is a phenomenon that travels backwards in time. The Shrike is an entity that is feared, that is worshipped, and a lot of people think or view the Shrike as consequences for humanity transcending Earth and conquering space. I was truly enamored by the space opera of the story and the seven different pilgrims and their stories and their experiences with the Shrike. Hyperion is not structured like your average novel. Hyperion is structured like an anthology because it follows the seven pilgrims and their different tales and their different experiences with the Shrike. So essentially, you get seven pilgrims, seven short stories. And I love how Simmons uses these short stories to weave them together for the overarching plot. So we get the priest's tale, the scholar's tale, the soldier's tale, poet's tale, detective tale, and the consul tale. All of these tales are very interesting and keep you engaged throughout the novel, but also the main story is excellent as well. My thing with these different short stories or these different tales, if you do not like one tale, the next one might be your favorite. I haven't met anybody that didn't like all the different tales. Everybody has at least one that is their favorite. Now, the world building in this story is massive. But the most important part, it's believable. I love the hegemony. I love the intergalactic politics. We have an AI civilization called the Techno Core and how they are working hand and foot with the humans. Far castle portals that can transport you from one planet to the next. We even see that rich people have homes with Farcaster windows that allow them to teleport to different planets in their home. And I thought that was a really cool touch. I already said this earlier, but the fact that these planets function like countries is so amazing to me because the political intrigue of countries being planets in this intergalactic govern system, I loved it. I loved it. And then lastly, we have this third party that the AI and the humans don't want to mess with, and they're called the ousters. This is a form of humanity that has been able to evolve outside of the hegemony web. These group of people are the people that is going to start this war for Hyperion. So you have three parties at power. You have the humans with the hegemony, you have the AI technocore, and then you have the outsters who are on the outside, living on the outside of this web in the galaxy. For this book to be made in the 80s, a lot of the sci-fi elements are crisp. I love the genius level sci-fi elements that Simmons wrote in his novel. Now we're getting to one of my favorite parts of the novel, which is the Shrike. The Shrike is literally one of my favorite villain antagonists in all of fiction. The fact that we really don't see or hear from the Shrike in the present story, but his presence is looming over the overarching plot of the story. It was amazing how Simmons was able to write that in. And then I love the fact that we see these different experiences. We see the pilgrims have different encounters with the Shrike, and we see different descriptions of the Shrike, and there's never one same description. The Shrike can be anything, and he is an entity that transcends time. And after this second reread, it made me realize I need to finish the series because we barely get any action from the Shrike. And the Shrike is the main goal in this story. The pilgrims are making their journey towards the Shrike. And so obviously in book 2, book 3, we'll see the Shrike a little bit more in action. And so I am looking forward to that. The lore, the mythology surrounding the Shrike, the mystery of his motives. This villain feels more like a force of nature rather than just your typical antagonist or villain. And there's one disturbing thing that the Shrike does to its victims that just kept me up at night. He has this gigantic steel tree where he impales its victims and they stay on this tree called the Tree of Pain. And so these pilgrims going onto this journey knowing that the inevitable may happen. All the pilgrims that had this journey before this cast, they all failed and they all, were never found again. And so seeing our pilgrims going on this journey, knowing that the inevitable is bound to happen. Now I'm gonna give you guys my rankings of these tales, these short stories, from my least favorite to my number one favorite, while also giving you some brief descriptions. So at last place, I have the Consul's Tale. This was the last tale, and I think my fatigue at the point when we got to this tale was at all-time high. One thing you guys will start to notice in this novel is that the characters tell the story from different point of views, and sometimes even characters tell it from a different character's perspective. And so at that point, I was already tired of reading another different character POV telling your story. One of the characters, Martin Silenens, even made a comment, and I felt that immediately. He said, like, man, do y'all not know how to tell a story in first person? And I definitely felt that. But I did enjoy the Consul's Tale. It was very imaginative, and I loved it because I love the character Siri. But other than that, it really didn't stand out to me as far as the other tales. Next, I have a detective's tale. I really enjoyed this tale because of the action, the sci-fi, but we get a detective trying to solve a case, an AI who felt they'd been murdered, and then we see them going on this whole journey trying to, find the clues, try to solve the case, and I really enjoyed that for sure. I didn't like or didn't appreciate was the romance just came out of nowhere. Honestly, it threw me for a loop. Not saying I'm not a romance guy, but some of the romance or some of the scenes was just not needed, in my opinion. You could take those out the story, and the detective's tale actually would be a better one, in my opinion. But I love this tale for the action we got. The next tale that I enjoyed was The Soldier's Tale. This was your typical military sci-fi action epic. I really enjoyed General Kasad as a character. He is probably one of my favorite pilgrims in the story. And I just thought his experience with the Shrike was totally out of left field. If you know, you know. And that's why it's ranked so high up for me, because just his experience with the Shrike was totally out of this world. Didn't have anything with this tale I did not like. This was like maybe, I think maybe the second tale in the story, and it was definitely needed after our first tale. But I enjoyed this one thoroughly. Now, third on the list is The Poet's Tale. Martin Silenus is by far my favorite character in Hyperion, and I truly appreciated The Poet's Tale. It definitely was more so like a weird coming of age, and how poets and writers deal with language, and how, us as writers, we need a muse and we need motivation to continue writing. I thought everything in that tale was speaking to me. And personally, I loved King Billy. He was a really cool character. And so Poet's Tale is going to be my third favorite tale, Hyperion. Number two, Scholar's Tale. Now, I am not a parent yet, but this would have made me cry if I was a dad. Just seeing how our scholar gets through, just seeing the way time manipulation was used in this tale was perfect. And I've never thought of it like that, in that way. I'm gonna just ask y'all this: what would you do if your son or your daughter was aging backwards? How could you deal with that? How could you continue living? How would you adjust your lifestyle to that fact? And there's nothing you could do about it. So just with that concept alone, that's what really put it up the list for me. So now we're talking about number one, the priest tale. Priest tale is the first tale you get in Hyperion, and it sets the mood immediately. This is where I was like, man, this story is getting dark, and I'm loving it. This is also the first story that uses a different POV. So we follow Father Duray, and we see how he deals with, you know, being around, I don't want to say a new species, but a devolved species. And it just touches on religion, it touches on education, and it gets real dark. It gets really scary. And I enjoyed this. This tale is what pulled me in for the long haul of Hyperion. So I'm glad Priest Tale was number one, because I don't know if I would have kept reading it if any of these other tales started us off with that. Okay, here are some criticisms, or here are some things you might not enjoy while reading Hyperion. I'm telling you guys, like the first 20 pages is hard, heavy language, but just stick through it. The heavy sci fi jargon is going to make sense once you get through these tales. Another thing that might turn you off from this novel is the non linear storytelling. As I said earlier, this is more like an anthology series, more so than just your typical novel. And so we jump back and forth. We jump from different POVs. We jump from, past to the present story. It just goes everywhere. So if you're somebody who likes to have a clean, linear story, this might not be the one for you. Then lastly, it kind of adds on to the non-linear storytelling, but the flashbacks inside flashbacks, I'm not gonna lie, that kind of ticked me off earlier in my read, especially my first read. But the second time I read it, I kind of appreciated it a lot more. It's just it's showing Simmons genius when it comes to writing, to be able to, you know, flashback within a flashback and then flashback within that flashback and then still keep you engaged enough to bring it all in and it makes sense. I think that only shows the brilliance of his penmanship. But I can't understand why some people might drop it. Now, here's why I'm going to continue reading the series, because of the ending. I'm telling you, the ending, it felt so like, I need to know what's next. I need to pick up the second book. And I was looking in my shelves and I was like, dang, I don't have the second books because I sold them. So the ending felt perfect. It like literally ends mid sentence, and you're like, dang, and but seeing how everything, came together, the pilgrims on their journey, all of them putting their differences aside, standing, eye to eye with each other or ear to ear with each other, and they're just, heading onto their fate together in lockstep. But I really need to know what's going on next. So that's why I'm going to continue reading the series, not only because how it ended, but I want to see more of the Shrike. I want to see more of these characters. So I will definitely be continuing the series. I'm going to end it off with this. Do I recommend you to read it? Yes, because this is for sci-fi fans. I've always been told, if you're a sci-fi fan and you haven't read Hyperion, how can you call yourself a sci-fi fan? If you love space operas, cosmic horror, if you like philosophical stories, this is for you. It may not be ideal for people, again, who like linear storytelling or who don't like heavy sci-fi language. I could totally understand that. Also, this serves as a standalone. I read it for the first time, my first read. I read it as a standalone. But with my second reread, with this reread, I'm going to try to finish the series. But trust me, this could be standing by itself. It's that good. So I definitely recommend, if you are a novel reader and you're a sci-fi fan, go ahead, check it out. All I have for you guys, man. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the reread, and I cannot wait to finish the series and continue on to book two and book three and then book four. I really enjoyed it. So if you read Hyperion, man, comment down below. Tell me how you enjoy it. Did you like the anthology storytelling? Did you like the Shrike? What are some things that was very interesting to you? What are some of your dislikes? Go ahead, drop them in the comments below. Let's have dialogue about this book, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.